Hello friends, I'm back again for the second and concluding part on the Nanda dynasty. In the first episode, we had looked at the origins and life of Nandas as per the Buddhist accounts. We had looked at Puranas, we had looked at the Greek accounts, and a little bit on on Nandas by Harsha Charitra, written by Banabhatta. In this part, we would look at rest of the sources, including the Jain source, the Kashmiri traditions, and then we have play like Mudra-Rakshasam, and an important document or an inscription called Hathigumpha inscription, which talk about Nandas, and a little bit on the Nandas by the Greek authors. So we'll conclude this life and origin of Nandas in this part. So we'll just look at the Nanda dynasty, but before that, we must, as usual, see a quote, and this one from Arthashastra by Kautilya. And Kautilya says, as one plucks out ripe fruit after another from a garden, so should the king from his kingdom. Out of fear for his own destruction, he should avoid unripe ones which give rise to revolts. So this is from Arthashastra 5.2.70. Now we will just look at the first part. This is evidence of Nandas in Jain literature. So we have three documents which talk about Nandas. We have Avasakya Sutra by Haribhadra, Parishishta Parvan by Hemachandra, Vivida Tirtha Kalpa by Jina Prabhasuri, and all these three documents have been written in current era, long at least 1,000 years after the removal of Nanda dynasty from Magda. Parishishta Parvan was written about 11th century, and all these other documents also, most of it about the same time. And all these three documents call Mahapadmananda as Napita Dasa or Napita Kumara, and this means the son of a courtesan by a barber. The text also indicates the barber's name, and he is mentioned as Divakirti. So, friends, we would look at the Jain account, the Greek accounts from the first episode. They also talk about the son of the present king, which is Agrames or Dhanananda. He is described as the son of a barber, and the Jain literature also talk about Mahapadma being a son of a barber, Divakirti, who had a relationship with a courtesan, and their offspring was Mahapadma. The text also describes Nanda conquest. So the text talk about the Nanda conquest extending up to the seas, and a minister named Kalapaka is mentioned who sowed the seeds of expansion in the mind of Mahapadmananda, and we know that Mahapadma has been called the second Parashurama by the Puranas, as he exterminated the Kshatriya realms across the country. So whether it was Anga, whether it was Vanga, whether it was Kuru, Panchal, Surasenas, etc., they were all exterminated by Mahapadma. So there is Prashashta Parvan also talk about Dhanananda, who was removed by Kautilya and Chandragupta, but he was spared his life. Now, Buddhist documents and all other documents, they say explicitly that Dhanananda was killed, but Jain text indicate that he was spared his life and was allowed to leave the city with his two wives and a daughter, and as much baggage uh, they could carry in a single chariot. And this daughter has been mentioned as falling in love with Chandragupta at first sight, and she was allowed to marry Chandragupta, though the name of the daughter is not mentioned. Now we come to the Kashmiri traditions uh, on the Nandas, and Katha Sarita Sagara and Bhritakatha Manjari. These are our two sources on Nandas, and they have been written anywhere between 10th to 12th century. And these texts know of two Nandas. So one is Purva Nanda, who is stated to be the father of Chandragupta, and another Nanda mentioned by these texts is a man called Yogananda. Now, we know, as per the Buddhist literature, as per as the Puranas, there were nine Nandas. Buddhist literature talk about nine brothers. The eldest of them was Ugrasena Nanda. Sorry. And we have the Puranas, which talk about Mahapadma and his eight sons, total nine. So we have some divergence here. They talk, the Kashmiri tradition know about only two Nandas, and the relation between these two Nandas is not mentioned at all. We only know that Yogananda was a king and he succumbed to black magic or Kritya practiced against his life by Chanakya. This is what has been stated in these accounts. So, apart from the names like, say, Chandragupta, Chanakya, and Nandas, there is no connection between Kashmiri texts and plays like Mudra-Rakshasam, even Puranas or the Buddhist literature. The Kashmiri traditions actually moves on a very, very different line altogether, and there is hardly any connection with, say, plays like Mudra Rakshasam or other accounts. So this is what Kashmiri traditions have to say about the Nandas. Now we'll go to Mudra Rakshasam. Now this is a magnificent play. If you want to read this play, you can always buy it on Amazon or download it from archive. But this is one of the best written plays which you could ever read. I mean, and this was written by Vishakha Datta, whose dating is, say, between 6th to 8th century, but definitely after Bana Bhatta. So we will place him somewhere around mid 8th century or so. And the play actually talks about the signet ring of Rakshasa, which is used by Kautilya or Chanakya to bring Rakshasa, who is the minister of Nanda, back the back to Patliputra and into the service of Chandragupta, because Chanakya wants this guy uh, to see the overall state of affairs in the Mauryan Empire. So the play actually adds the 10th Nanda. So we all know about 9 Nandas. In Kashmiri traditions, there are 2 Nandas, but here we have the 10th Nanda. And his name has been described as Sarvatha Siddhi. Now, he is described as Nanda Vamasiya, or Askayan of Nanda family. The text describes him as an old man, and when Chandragupta's forces actually besieged Patliputra, this man who was old, he could not withstand the siege of the city and betook himself to a nearby forest where he started living his life as an ascetic. Uh, However, and we have the proof of this in this drama, and there is a comment made by Chanakya where he says that he has exterminated the 9 Nandas, but he will not rest until he has destroyed the last offshoot of the Nanda family, that is Sarvatha Siddhi. And Sarvatha Siddhi was done to death in the on the orders of Chanakya, as Chanakya's vow was to exterminate even the last offshoot of the Nanda dynasty, and that last offshoot was Sarvata Siddhi, who was killed on the orders of Chanakya. So the play ascribes the word Kulahina, or a lowly birth, or a Shudra, to Chandragupta. That is a Shudra, and makes Nanda king as a Kshatriya. So there is also a point of divergence here. The Puranas calls Dhanananda or the Nandas as son of Shudra. The Buddhist accounts calls him Chorapubas, or the dacoits of the old. The Jain text call him as the son of a barber, and so does the Greek accounts. But Mudra-Rakshasam actually turns the tables on all of them, and it starts calling Nandas as Kshatriya and Chandragupta as a Shudra. So this is what the Mudra-Rakshasam has to say about Nandas. They make Nanda as a Nandas as of noble lineage, and they make Chandragupta as a Shudra, and this is completely extraordinary because all other texts are pointing to some place else, and this drama points to somewhere else. So this is what Mudra Rakshasam has to say about the Nandas. So we will just come to another important inscription. Now this inscription is the Hathigumpha inscription of Kharavela. Hathigumpha inscription is located near Bhubaneswar in the state of Odisha, and Kharavela was a Jain king of Kalinga, or modern day Orissa in those days. The this inscription is of about 17 lines, and few lines are not readable at all because of I mean it's very old. It's undated, but historians have somehow calculated. Yeah, so historians have calculated it somewhere in the second century BCE, that is more than 2200 years old. And this also talks about the Nandas. We will just look at it. The fun fact of this inscription is actually describes about the conquest of King Kharavela, whose empire included parts of Magadha, Bengal, and then modern day Odisha, Andhra, and he went really up to the south to carve out an empire. But his empire could not last long, because after his death, his his offspring, or his successors were not that strong, so that empire also melted away. Uh, and this particular inscription talks about various kind of public works which Kharavela did, whether it is construction of reservoirs, tanks, whether it was construction of road, and various other things about Kharavela. Uh, so we will just look at this one, and we'll just go to line 6 of Hathigumpha, and it says the canal excavated in the year 103 of King Nanda. So as we can see, the King Nanda is there, and we also know, as per Puranas, Mahapadma conquered Kalinga, and this the word is canal here, but if you read Alexander Cunningham's translation of this inscription, he uses the word as he he uses canal as well. So, but there is also one important thing, which is the year. So it dates to year 103 of King Nanda. Now, friends, if we presume somehow that this inscription was written inscribed in say about 170 BCE, which is the date of Kharavela, by the way. And 170 BC, if we extend that to 103, so it comes us to about 273 BCE. Now we know that in 273 BCE, it was not Mahapadma Nanda who was ruling. It was actually Emperor Bindusara who was ruling the whole subcontinent. So this dating has been of some controversy. Alexander Cunningham mentions the year 300, and some few authors have also mentioned the word 300 here. Before, so 300, even if we add 173 plus 300, it goes up to about 470 BCE. That is the time of King Ajatshatru of Magadha and not Mahapadmananda. So there is some issue with regards to dating of this particular line. My guess it should be about 200 rather than 300, because if we add 200 more years after, say, even after 160, 170, so we get a date of about 360, 370 BCE, which somehow correlates the existence of Mahapadma. So this is the line 6 of Hathigumpha, which talks about some kind of public works constructed, done by the Nandas. Now we go up to the line 12 of Hathigumpha, and the line describes that, and he sets up the image, the Jina of Kalinga, which had been taken away by King Nanda and caused to be brought home in the riches of Magadha and Anga, along with keepers of family jewels. This is the line 12 of the Hathigumpha inscription, and it talks about the image of the Jina, or image of the first Tirthankar of the Jainas, uh, Rishabh Devji, and that image was carried away by Mahapadma when he conquered Kalinga, and he also took away the imperial royal family jewels, and it was left to Kharavela to bring all these things back to Kalinga after the demise of the Mauryans, when the country, was basically divided into various small kingdoms, and there was invasions from the northwest by the Greeks, and Kharavela defeated the Magdans, or Pushyamitra Shunga perhaps, and he brought back all these things, the image of Rishabh Devji, plus he also brought away the family jewels. So these two lines indicate the existence of or the extent of the Nanda Empire and some of the things which they had done, construction of a canal, or during their campaigns of conquest of Kalinga, what they did with the royal family jewels. So all these things are also there, or are mentioned in this line 12 of Hathigumpha inscription. And there is a fun fact of Hathigumpha inscription. So there is a word called Bharatvarsha. Now this word you will find in the Puranas, which is, and Bharatvarsha is one of the oldest names of India, including Bharat and Bharatvarsh. Now this word Bharatvarsh is first time mentioned in any Indian inscription, and that inscription is the Hathigumpha inscription, which mentions the word Bharatvarsha. So this is a little bit fun fact about this inscription. Now we look at the Sangam literature on Nandas, and we will start with this quote by Mamulunar, who is the Sangam era poet about 1st century BCE. And here is what he has to say. What is it asks a lovelorn lady that has attracted my lover better than my charms? Is it the treasure accumulated in prosperous Pataliputra and hidden in the waters of the Ganges by the Nandas of great renown, victorious in war? So here we have something on the wealth of Nandas, which we will discuss just after this. So Mamulunar knows about Nandas and he knows about their wealth. He also calls Patliputra as very prosperous. So, so what we'll just look at now the wealth. So the Tamil literature now we have seen what Mamulunar says. It gives you an indication of wealth of Nandas. The Katha Sarita Sagra, the Kashmiri accounts which we discussed. Now they mention that the Nandas or the Dhanananda, he had 990 million gold pieces along with 80 kotis of wealth. So 1 koti is about 10 million or 1 crore. And all this wealth, as per Mamulunar, we just go back to this quote, and he says that uh, is it the treasure accumulated in the prosperous Patliputra and hidden in the waters of the Ganges by the Nandas? Now, what the text indicate that Dhanananda actually all this treasure 990 million gold coins and I don't know what kind of wealth he had, but he hid all this wealth in a rock excavated in the bed of Ganges. This is what the text has to say. And all this wealth actually he accumulated by taxing gums, skins, stone, wood. So we have an account, a Buddhist account, which says that even uh, the Hindu cremations and wood is used primarily for Hindu cremations, and that wood was also taxed by Dhanananda. So this is a kind of a thing which how Dhanananda accumulated his wealth. Now we'll look at the power of Nandas. So we'll start with Q. Curtis Rufus, and Rufus calculates the Nanda army to be 200,000 infantry, 20,000 cavalry, 2,004 horse chariots, and a formidable force of 3,000 war elephants. Now Plutarch, in the second century, he says the army of the Gangridae or Nandas to have 80,000 horse, 8,000 chariots, 6,000 war elephants, and 200,000 infantry. Now we have account of Diodorus, and he says about Nandas that upon learning that the Gangridae had 4,000 elephants equipped for war, he, that is Alexander, gave up his campaign against him. When we were discussing about Alexander's retreat in our chapters on Alexander, uh, I had mentioned that Alexander's soldiers they rebelled against him near the Bias River because they were hearing all these stories of Gangridae. Gangridae is from Ganga, so people living near the Ganges Valley, Ganges Valley, and all this area was the core area of the Nanda Empire. So all this Gangridae was actually a part of Nanda Empire, and we know that these Greek soldiers they were afraid, practically speaking, when they heard about 3,000 or 4,000 war elephants waiting for them on the other side of Bias, because they had faced 200 war elephants of Porus, but here we have 10 times that more war elephants waiting for them when they try to cross Bias. Diodorus continues, no foreign king has ever subdued this country, all alien nations being fearful of the multitude and strength of the beasts, that is, elephants. In fact, even Alexander of Macedon Although he had subdued all of Asia, refrained from making war among the Gangradai. So this is what I had just explained. The Gangradai is people living near the Ganga river, which is under Nanda Empire. Now look at Plutarch, and he says, I quote, "For they, Macedonians, were told that the king of Gangradai and Prasi were awaiting him with 80,000 horsemen, 200,000 footmen, 8,000 chariots, and 6,000 fighting elephants." This is Plutarch in his parallel life of Alexander. And he adds another word, Prasi. Prasi is from Sanskrit, a Sanskrit word Prachya, which means the Easterners or the people living east of the Bias River, which are, of course, which is the regions of modern day Bihar, Bengal, even UP, etc. All these areas were under Nanda Empire. So Plutarch here also talks about, in an indirect way, he talks about the power or the strength of the Nanda arms. So, but the issue is that this Dhanananda, he had enough power and wealth. He had 990 million gold pieces. He had 80 kotis of wealth. He had army which was the greatest in India at that time. But he lacked popularity. And why he lacked popularity? Because of the original son of his father. In spite being a barber, and society in those days was like that. So he was a barber, and he unscrupulously murdered his king, his sovereign, married her widow, and brought out 8 kids out of her, and they were all ruling one after another. And the fact is that another thing which went against him was that he was a Shudra. A Shudra, as per Indian Hindu text, like Manu and others, they are not supposed to rule. Ruling is only for Kshatriyas, not even for Brahmins. Brahmins are not supposed to rule, and Shudras are not also not supposed to rule. But these are all written texts. What happens on practically on the ground is very different. And we had spoken about his unjust taxes on everything: woods, gums, stones, even cremation wood was taxed. So this tyrannical rule and exactions were too much for the people of Magadha. And hence when Chandragupta conquered or started his campaign against the Nandas, he must have got enough support from the people against Dhanananda. So, and his power was tottering to its fall, as it was not based upon people's will. If you taxed unjustly and use all that money uh, to make merry, then people will go against you, and that is what happened. So, and in 322 BCE, Dhanananda was removed by Chandragupta. He was possibly killed as per Buddhist sources, or he was spared. But the fact is that by 322 BCE, Nanda Empire was no more, and then we could see the rise of Mauryas, which extended the Magadhan kingdom or the empire of Mauryas up till Afghanistan, into Herat, whole of Pakistan, modern day Pakistan, and about 80% of India, minus the extreme south. So, friends, that completes this completes my this thing on Nandas, and we will be back again. I'll be back again next Sunday to look at another some other aspect of Indian history. Thank you all for your support, cooperation. Please like and subscribe this. Contact me on Twitter. I am giving the giving my account name on the description box. Uh, like and subscribe, and I will meet you next week. Thank you so much.